Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Thank you for joining us as always. For many years, religion has been a hot topic in Nigeria, not just in spiritual terms, but also in political and socio-economic terms. Whether you are talking about how ethnic groups are stereotyped, how political parties are structured, how voting patterns are determined, the frequency of religious conflicts, the agitations for secession, or Boko Haram. In many ways, religion defines Nigeria. Today, we are exploring an intriguing book that addresses this sensitive subject. It's titled Religion and the Making of Nigeria. The author of the book is Femi Vaughan, a Nigerian scholar and Geoffrey Canada Professor of Africana Studies and History at Bowdoin College and the State University of New York, United States of America. Professor Vaughan is also currently the Alfred Sargent Lee and Mary Ames Lee Professor of African Studies at Amherst College, Amherst, Massachusetts, USA. Professor Vaughan is the author and editor of 10 scholarly books, including the award-winning Nigerian Chiefs, Traditional Power in Modern Politics. Together with its author, let's explore our book of the week, Religion and the Making of Nigeria. Professor Vaughan, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club.
It's a pleasure to join you.
Religion and the Making of Nigeria. Thoroughly enjoyed reading it.
Thanks very much.
You're a professor of African Studies and History,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, why did you write this? This is Religion and the Making of Nigeria. Of course, there's a lot of history. I saw a lot of history here. But I'm curious to know why you picked this very intriguing subject.
Yeah, thanks very much for that question. I am trained as a political scientist, but much of my work have had an historical dimension to them. So with regards to this specific project, as most of us are aware, the question of religious violence, specifically Christian-Muslim confrontations and conflicts, are quite endemic in the core northern part of Nigeria and the central part of Nigeria, the Middle Belt. I grew up in Ibadan, knowing fully well that these kinds of brutal religious attacks were quite common. This is going back to the 1970s. But I was well aware that in the part of Nigeria where I was born and raised, southwestern Nigeria, the Yoruba region, you have significant Muslim and Christian populations, right? And the fact of the matter is, for the most part, Yoruba, Christians, and Muslims live together in relative peace and harmony. They're very pious about their religion, without any question. But hardly would you find a major confrontation between Yoruba Christians and Muslims. So in southwestern Nigeria is very much a Muslim-Christian crossroads. So I had to ask myself the question, why do we have this constant integral religious violence in the core Hausa Fulani, Kanuri Muslim North, and the central part of the country where you have significant Christian and Muslim populations, the middle belt of Nigeria? I was really troubled, particularly by the Sharia Riots from 1999 to the early 2000s at the turn of the century. If you recall, those attacks were systematic, they were not sporadic, and they were sustained over a long period of time. They really hit the very core of our national identity. So it's really these very troubling religious attacks and violence that motivated me to embark on this long analysis. I wanted to find out the reasons why. I knew that these are not just simply contemporary questions. I knew these questions have to be structural and systemic. And if you have structural and systemic problems, then it's going to be very important to combine a variety of academic and scholarly tools of analysis, historical analysis being one, and of course political science, comparative political science being another. These two areas of studies have helped me very much to embark on this project, going back easily 250 years.
I'll get back to a few things you just said now, but let's explain to somebody out there who has never read this book, what are the core issues in religion and the making of Nigeria? What are the central themes and messages?
So the central question really is, and this might surprise a lot of people, that at the core of this problem is a political and historical one. So in other words, religion is not the essential problem. The problem is essentially political and historical. By that I mean that in northern and central Nigeria, it is very difficult to talk about history, politics, and society without really talking about the role of Islam and eventually Christianity. I gave the comparative analysis of the southwest of Nigeria earlier. So that element is extremely important. A second element is for us to really grapple with the idea as Nigerians, to understand that at the foundation of the making of Nigeria, at the coming together of three major types of religion, Nigeria's two world religions, Islam and Christianity on the one hand, and the various indigenous religions in Nigeria. I argue in the book that we need to really understand that these two world religions are central, integral to the social, political, economic, and historical composition of our country. If we see the significance of the two world religions as such, we will have a better understanding of the structural and systemic nature of this crisis in northern Nigeria and in central Nigeria.